Camilla leaned against the counter of her office kitchen, stirring a spoon through her third cup of coffee for the day. Outside, the sun was beginning its descent, painting the downtown skyline with streaks of gold. The buzz of her coworkers' chatter about after-work plans filled the room, and Camilla couldn't help but smile as her friend Lisa nudged her. "Come on, Camilla, just one drink. It's Thursday." Lisa's tone was teasing, but the spark in her eye was undeniable. Camilla hesitated for the briefest of moments. She and Aaron had discussed this countless times, in fact. No more late nights at the bar. No more after-hours outings that left him pacing at home, worried and suspicious. She'd promised to cut back, even swore up and down that her partying days were over. But that was weeks ago, and tonight, a familiar itch crept into her chest, a craving for the thrill of the crowd and the energy of the dance floor. Aaron didn't understand. He never had. For Camilla, the bar wasn't just about drinking or dancing. It was about freedom. It was about feeling alive in a way that her routine life as a wife couldn't quite match. She was social by nature, the kind of woman who thrived on connection and conversation, who knew how to turn a stranger's glance into a lingering gaze. At the bar, she was vibrant, untethered, a version of herself that she sometimes missed. A sly grin spread across her lips. "All right," she said, setting her mug down. "One drink." Lisa whooped with delight, grabbing her bag as they joined the others heading out the door. Camilla glanced at her phone. Aaron would be home by now, probably pulling dinner together or unwinding from his day. He'd been distant lately, guarded in a way that made Camilla feel boxed in. She knew the stakes of breaking her promise, but tonight wasn't about promises or ultimatums. It was about her. By the time she and Lisa reached the bar, the sun had dipped below the horizon. Music pulsed through the air as they stepped inside, greeted by familiar faces and the comforting hum of laughter and clinking glasses. Camilla felt the energy wrap around her like an embrace, soothing the part of her that always felt restless. Her charm was effortless. She moved from group to group, chatting and laughing, her radiant smile drawing attention wherever she went. At one point, Lisa leaned over, laughing. "Camilla, you've got every guy in here looking at you. How do you do it?" Camilla shrugged, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "It's a gift." What she didn't tell Lisa was how much she enjoyed it. The weight of eyes on her, the feeling of being desired, even if she wasn't planning to act on it. Well, not usually. A small voice in the back of her mind whispered warnings, but she pushed it aside. As the night wore on, Camilla caught herself exchanging flirtatious smiles with a man at the bar. A tall, confident type whose presence reminded her of the excitement she used to crave before life became predictable. Aaron's face flashed in her mind, his worried eyes and stern voice as he begged her to stop these nights out. But tonight Aaron wasn't here. Tonight, the pull of her desires was stronger. The hours melted away like ice cubes in her whiskey. Camilla was in her element, holding court at the bar with Lisa and a rotating cast of strangers. She laughed at their jokes, leaned in conspiratorially during their stories, and let the smooth hum of the alcohol make the world feel distant and less demanding. The earlier tension she'd felt about breaking her promise to Aaron dissipated with each sip, replaced by the thrill of being surrounded by attention and admiration. One guy, Greg, or maybe Jeff, she didn't quite catch his name, was particularly persistent. He wasn't exactly her type, but he had an easy confidence and a sharp wit that made him stand out. He bought her a drink and lingered close enough that their arms brushed whenever she laughed. She didn't pull away. Why should she? It was harmless, after all. When Greg or Jeff pulled out his phone and asked for her number, Camilla hesitated for the briefest of moments before typing it in. He grinned and promised to call her sometime. She didn't say no. By the time she glanced at the clock, it was already past midnight. The thought of Aaron waiting at home crossed her mind, but instead of guilt, she felt a flicker of irritation. She could already hear his nagging voice in her head, listing off reasons why tonight was another sign of her irresponsibility. He acted like he was some paragon of virtue, but really he was just boring, a man who'd traded spontaneity for predictability and called it maturity. Camilla shook off the thought, throwing back the last of her drink. She still had time to enjoy herself, didn't she? Tomorrow's job report could wait a little longer. She doesn't have to go to the office in the morning. On Friday, she always works from home. She prepares reports on her laptop and makes a few calls with her colleagues. It wasn't until closer to 3 a.m. that Camilla realized she'd had enough. Her head buzzed pleasantly, her steps were steady, but she knew the line between tipsy and too far was close. She declined another round and began gathering her things. "You sure you're heading out?" Greg Jeff leaned in, his tone warm and teasing. "The night doesn't have to end here. I know a great little spot. Just the two of us." Camilla flashed her most charming smile. "Tempting, but I think I'll pass. Another time, maybe." She wasn't sure if there would ever be another time, but she'd mastered the art of polite dismissal. He nodded and stepped aside as she slipped on her coat and hailed a taxi. The ride home was quiet, the city streets nearly deserted, and the faint hum of her own thoughts grew louder. Scenarios of the inevitable clash with Aaron played out in her mind, but she didn't dread them. If anything, the alcohol lent her a boldness she didn't usually feel in his presence. What's he going to say this time? She wondered, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Another lecture about respect? About our agreement? Please. In her mind, she rehearsed her retorts. "You're not the boss of me, Aaron. I'm an adult. I work hard. I deserve to have fun." Camilla almost laughed out loud at the imagined scene, her courage swelling with every mile closer to home. Let him try to argue. I'll shut him down so fast his head will spin. When the taxi pulled up to their quiet suburban street, Camilla felt a wave of relief. The house was dark, a welcome sign that she wouldn't have to deal with Aaron's brooding right away. She fished her keys from her bag and pushed open the door, her heels clicking against the tile. The silence greeted her, and she realized the house wasn't just dark. It was empty. Aaron wasn't home. Camilla froze for a moment, her alcohol-fogged mind working to process the unexpected scene. Then, a mischievous grin spread across her face. "Bingo," she said, her voice playful and triumphant, echoing through the empty living room. She kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the couch, stretching out like a queen finally free from her court. No lectures, no disapproving looks, no guilt trips about promises she never really intended to keep. Just her, the quiet, and the satisfaction of living life exactly how she wanted. Before you find out what happens next, please subscribe to the channel. But a tickle of curiosity gnawed at her. Aaron's absence was unlike him, and while she enjoyed the freedom, a small part of her wondered where he could be. Probably at some friend's house sulking, she muttered with a smirk. Still, the thought lingered, tugging at her. She stood, a little unsteady, and wandered through the house. Bedroom, office, bathroom, empty. The garage was void of his car, too. It was odd. Aaron rarely left without at least texting her, even when they fought. Camilla felt the faintest flicker of unease but quickly dismissed it. In the kitchen, her steps faltered. On the table, under the soft glow of the nightlight, were three objects that immediately drew her attention. A stack of divorce papers, a small box containing his engagement ring, and a folded letter. Her heart skipped a beat before she shook her head and laughed. "What? Oh, this is rich," she said aloud, walking over to the table. Picking up the papers, she squinted at them under the dim light. She laughed harder, the sound sharp and echoing. "Aaron, you really outdid yourself this time," she said, flipping through the pages. "Blackmail. Drama. You think this is how you get me to change?" She slapped the papers back onto the table and eyed the ring. Like that's supposed to mean something now? The letter caught her eye next. She unfolded it with theatrical flair, leaning against the counter as she began to read. The words hit harder than she expected. "Camilla, I've spent countless nights thinking about how to fix what's broken between us, but it's clear to me now that I can't do it alone. Your behavior has become unbearable, and you're not keeping the promises you made. I loved you, Camilla. I still do. But love requires respect, trust, and mutual effort, things you've stopped giving me. You dismiss my feelings as if they don't matter. You say one thing and do another, and it's tearing me apart. I know how you've been spending your nights. I know about the bars, the flirting, and the way you let other men into spaces that should belong to us. It's the saddest and most painful reality of our marriage. This cannot continue. If there's any part of you that values what we built, meet me at the Courtyard Suites, room 217, on Maple Grove Road by 6 p.m. this Friday. If you don't, you won't see me again. I would like to resolve this peacefully. I warn you that I am prepared to show you the serious consequences of your behavior and choices. I've left divorce papers on the table. Please review them. I hope you realize the gravity of what is happening and the finality of my decision. The rest is up to you, Aaron. Camilla crumpled the letter in her hand, her chest tightening for a fleeting moment before the alcohol-fueled bravado returned. She threw the letter onto the floor with a scoff. "Go to hell, Aaron," she yelled, her voice rising in the empty house. "What do you know? You don't know anything, Jon Snow." Ha! Her laugh was loud and unsteady, but the bravado masked the tiny, nagging voice inside her. Her gaze fell to the divorce papers again, and she felt a flicker of defiance. He thinks he can just walk away? Who does he think he is? I'm the queen here, and he's the one who should be groveling. She paced the kitchen, the words from the letter bouncing around her head. Flirting with other men. Aaron couldn't know, about Tony, right? The fling had been brief, impulsive, and, in her mind, inconsequential. She laughed again, a little sharper this time. "Well, Aaron, I hope you don't find out about that," she said aloud, her tone almost mocking. But his ultimatum stung. The suggestion that this wasn't a bluff, that he might truly leave, gnawed at the edges of her confidence. Shoving the thought aside, she poured herself a glass of water and popped a couple of hangover pills. The room tilted slightly as she made her way to the bedroom. "He'll come crawling back," she told herself, climbing into bed. "He's just trying to manipulate me. He'll apologize and beg me to come back." Her head hit the pillow, and the room spun lazily as her exhaustion took over. She muttered into the quiet, "I don't care, Aaron. You're the one who needs to change." But the words felt hollow. As sleep claimed her, the crumpled letter lay on the kitchen floor, a quiet reminder of the choices she hadn't yet realized would change everything. When Camilla woke up in 10 a.m., the events of the night before felt like a distant haze. The crumpled letter and divorce papers on the kitchen table came back into focus as she powered up her laptop to work on her report. She glanced at the documents as if they were an annoying fly buzzing around her head. Blackmail. That's all this is, she thought, dismissively shaking her head. Aaron just wants attention. He wants me to grovel and beg him to stay. Not happening. Her lips curved into a smirk as she imagined him waiting at some sad little motel room, hoping she'd rush in with apologies and promises to change. He'll crack first. He always does. He's probably pacing right now, wondering why I haven't called. Let him sweat it out. She then opened her laptop and began to do her reporting work. By 5 p.m., Camilla's focus on work had waned entirely. She grabbed her phone and messaged Lisa and a few of her other girlfriends. "Nightclub. Drinks on me. Need to blow off steam," she typed, hitting send with satisfaction. Within minutes, the replies came pouring in. "You're on. Where to? You okay, babe?" Camilla smiled as she texted back the details, already picturing the drinks and the music wiping away the nagging weight of Aaron's letter. By 8 p.m., Camilla was perched on a velvet seat in the VIP section of a crowded club, a martini in hand. The bass thumped in her chest as she leaned into her friends, venting dramatically. "Can you believe him?" she asked, the words spilling out faster as the alcohol loosened her tongue. "He left divorce papers on the kitchen table. And a letter. Like, what am I supposed to do? Cry and beg? Aaron thinks he can give me an ultimatum and I'll just roll over." Lisa rolled her eyes, raising her glass. "Girl, please, you're a queen. Aaron should be chasing you, not the other way around," another friend chimed in. "Exactly. He's lucky to have you. If he can't see that, it's his loss. Let him sit in his little motel room and sulk." Their words were exactly what Camilla wanted to hear. Fueled by their encouragement and several cocktails, a plan began forming in her mind. I'll show him, she thought, swirling the last sip of her drink. He thinks he can walk away? Fine. I'll do the same, only I'll have more fun. Camilla scanned the club, searching for a man who could be her ticket to revenge. Someone to remind her how desirable she was. Someone who would make Aaron regret ever doubting her. But as the night wore on, her usual charm seemed off-kilter. The men she smiled at barely glanced her way, their attention pulled elsewhere. Conversations fizzled and no one lingered long. By 11 p.m., frustration had replaced her earlier confidence. The drinks weren't helping anymore and the club felt stifling. With a huff, Camilla called it a night and ordered a ride home. The house was eerily quiet when she arrived. Tossing her heels aside, she walked into the living room and stopped short. The emptiness hit her in a way she hadn't expected. Aaron wasn't there to greet her, to frown disapprovingly, or to offer her a glass of water to stave off her inevitable hangover. Camilla slumped onto the couch, staring at her phone. Maybe I should call him, she thought, a flicker of unease creeping in. She dialed his number and the line rang endlessly before going to voicemail. To hell with you, she muttered, tossing the phone onto the coffee table. I don't need you, Aaron. I can handle everything myself. But the silence around her felt heavier than usual, and as she climbed into bed, the alcohol buzz fading, a strange sense of loneliness lingered. The next morning her phone rang, jolting her awake. She groggily answered, her voice scratchy. Hello? Mrs. Camilla Tronder? The voice on the other end was crisp and professional. Yes, speaking, she replied, sitting up. This is Mark Reynolds, Aaron Tronder's divorce attorney. I wanted to confirm that you've had a chance to review the documents left at your residence. Camilla blinked, the grogginess giving way to confusion. Wait, what? You're his lawyer? Why are you calling me? Per Mr. Tronder's instructions, all communication will go through me moving forward. If you have any questions or counteroffers regarding the divorce proceedings, feel free to contact my office. I hope you understand the seriousness of the matter. The line went dead before Camilla could formulate a response. She stared at the phone, her chest tightening. He's serious. The rest of the day unraveled quickly. When she attempted to transfer money from their joint account to cover her credit card bill, the transaction was declined. Panicking, she checked her banking app only to find the account frozen. Her personal account was emptied except for a few $100s. How did he do this, she thought, her pulse racing. Did he plan all of this? Camilla sat at the kitchen table, her earlier bravado crumbling under the weight of realization. Aaron wasn't bluffing. He'd been waiting for a meeting, but it hadn't come, and now he'd made his move. He was gone, and he had taken control in a way she hadn't thought possible. For the first time, the thought struck her. What if I've underestimated him? The divorce proceedings began like a storm Camilla hadn't seen coming. Her confidence shaken by the realization that Aaron wasn't just bluffing. He had prepared meticulously. The first court session laid the groundwork for what would become a brutal unraveling of her life. Aaron's lawyer, Mark Reynolds, was sharp, methodical, and relentless. Camilla sat stiffly at the table with her own attorney, listening as Reynolds presented the financial picture. Your Honor, Reynolds began, his voice calm and precise, it is important to note that my client, Mr. Tronder, took steps to protect himself financially after enduring years of Ms. Tronder's reckless and irresponsible behavior. He laid out evidence showing that Aaron had moved substantial funds from their joint accounts into accounts solely under his name months before filing for divorce. Real estate, investments, and even some personal assets were already legally untouchable by Camilla. Her attorney objected, arguing that such actions were preemptive and unfair, but Reynolds had the paperwork to back up every move Aaron had made. By the end of the session, it was clear that Camilla would be left with far less than she had anticipated. The next blow came during the presentation of evidence about her personal life. Reynolds, ever composed, introduced a series of photos, screenshots, and logs. Your Honor, these documents demonstrate a consistent pattern of behavior that reflects poorly on Ms. Tronder's ability to maintain a stable and respectful marriage. The evidence included photos of Camilla leaving bars late at night, sometimes with unfamiliar men, text messages and emails Aaron had retrieved showing flirtatious exchanges with various individuals, proof of a brief affair with a man named Tony, including hotel receipts and text messages confirming their encounters. Camilla's attorney tried to dismiss the evidence as invasive and irrelevant, but Reynolds countered, "Your Honor, this evidence speaks to the breakdown of trust in the marriage, which is a key component in determining equitable division of assets." Aaron himself didn't appear in person for any of the sessions, but his face would sometimes appear on a monitor via online broadcast. Sitting somewhere across the country, he looked calm and resolute, a stark contrast to Camilla's growing anxiety. "I trusted her," Aaron said during one such appearance, his voice steady but filled with quiet disappointment. "I built a life for us, a stable, loving home, but that trust was broken over and over again. I had to protect myself when it became clear she had no intention of changing." Camilla's world began to crumble further when rumors started circulating at her workplace. It wasn't long before she discovered the source, an anonymous report filed to her employer detailing her struggles with alcohol and the evidence of her infidelity. The details were too specific to be from anyone but Aaron. "You've been a great asset, Camilla," her boss said, her tone sympathetic but firm. "But this kind of reputation is damaging to the firm. It's best if you resign quietly." Humiliated, Camilla packed up her desk, the whispers of coworkers trailing behind her like a shadow. Sitting in now nearly empty house, Camilla stared at the divorce papers that had once seemed like a joke. Aaron was gone, really gone, and he had taken the foundation of her life with him. For the first time, she allowed herself to see the truth. Aaron had been her anchor, the steady hand that kept her from spiraling. Without him, the cracks in her world were becoming gaping chasms. The loss of her husband, her finances, her job, and even her dignity left her feeling exposed and vulnerable in a way she never had before. But the worst part? The realization that Aaron hadn't just walked away. He had rebuilt his life, far from her, while systematically dismantling the one they had shared, and now Camilla was left to pick up the pieces, alone. In the months following the divorce, Camilla's life became a series of half-hearted attempts to regain control, but the threads that once wove her confidence together seemed permanently frayed. She tried reaching out to Aaron, first in anger, then in desperation, and finally in something resembling regret. Each time, her attempts were met with silence. One day, her lawyer forwarded her a single-line message from Aaron. "I gave you a chance to talk to me openly and sincerely, but you chose to party again. I was waiting for you at 6 p.m. at the hotel. I warned you and you thought you were a queen." The words stung more than she cared to admit. For the first time, Camilla understood that Aaron's absence wasn't temporary. He wasn't playing games or waiting for her to come to her senses. He was gone for good. Camilla threw herself into the pursuit of a fresh start, but the results were dismal. Her first attempt at dating ended when the man she'd been seeing revealed he was already in a relationship. "It's complicated," he'd said, as if that made it better. The next seemed promising, until she found out he was married, using her as a distraction from his crumbling home life. The excitement she used to thrive on felt hollow now, each new connection tainted by the shadow of betrayal. The vibrant social woman who had once commanded rooms now moved through life in muted tones. Nights at bars no longer felt exhilarating. They felt lonely. The drinks didn't bring the same buzz. They just dulled the edges of her disappointment. One evening, as she sat alone in the dim light of her living room, Camilla scrolled through her phone, staring at photos from the life she used to have. There were pictures of her and Aaron, his steady presence a stark contrast to her sparkling energy. For the first time, she saw what she'd taken for granted: his patience, his reliability, his quiet love. Tears welled up, but she didn't fight them. She let them fall, realizing that the life she had lost wasn't stolen from her. It was a choice she had made, brick by brick, until the foundation crumbled beneath her. Camilla still told herself she was a queen, but the throne felt cold, the crown heavy, and the kingdom a barren wasteland. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.